What if the most important symbol in The Catcher in the Rye proves that Holden Caulfield has been lying to himself the entire time? Here's what I mean. The novel is called The Catcher in the Rye. Holden dreams of being a catcher, saving children from falling off cliffs. But the object he treasures most, his dead brother Allie's baseball glove, isn't a catcher's mitt. It's a fielder's mitt. And that changes everything. For over 70 years, millions of readers have missed this detail. They see the glove as just a symbol of innocence, of Holden's lost brother, of childhood. But Jerome David Salinger didn't write catcher's mitt. He wrote fielder's mitt. And Salinger never made mistakes. He was a World War II veteran who wrote this novel in foxholes. He spent years perfecting every word, so when he chose fielder instead of catcher, he meant something. Something profound about grief, identity, and the lie we tell ourselves about who we want to be. A catcher stands behind home plate, at the center of everything, controlling the game, catching what comes at them. A fielder? A fielder stands alone in the outfield, watching, waiting, unable to control anything. One is active, heroic. The other is passive, isolated. Holden wants to be a catcher, but he carries a fielder's glove. That gap between what he wants and what he has is where the entire novel lives. Today, I'm showing you why this one-word fielder unlocks everything about The Catcher in the Rye. Why Holden can't save anyone, why he breaks down, why the novel ends the way it does, and why Salinger's mistake was actually genius. By the end of this video, you'll never see that green ink-covered glove the same way again. Let's uncover what everyone else missed. Before we dive into the symbolism, we need to understand the baseball. Because this isn't just literary analysis, this is about two completely different positions, two completely different identities. A catcher's mitt is thick, heavily padded, with a deep circular pocket. It's designed to absorb impact, high-speed fastballs coming at you at 90 miles per hour. The catcher crouches behind home plate, right in the center of the action. Every pitch, every play goes through them. They control the game. They're calling the shots, signaling the pitcher, managing the entire field. Active, central, in control. Now, a fielder's mitt? Completely different. It has individual fingers, webbing between them, designed to catch balls coming from a distance, fly balls arcing through the sky, ground balls bouncing unpredictably. And here's the crucial part. Fielders play in the outfield. They're far from the action, often standing alone in vast open space. They don't control anything. They wait, they watch, they react to what others do. When Holden says Allie had a fielder's mitt, he's not just describing equipment, he's describing a way of being in the world. Think about what these positions reveal about personality. The catcher is a leader, communicative, constantly engaged. The fielder is contemplative, solitary, observant. The catcher is at the heart of every moment. The fielder is peripheral, watching from the margins, waiting for something to happen that might never come. And here's where it gets devastating. Holden wants desperately to be a catcher, to be at the center, to save people, to control outcomes. But the person he loved most, the person he's trying to hold on to, was a fielder. Allie wasn't trying to control the game. He was standing in the outfield reading poetry he'd written on his glove in green ink. While everyone else focused on winning, on competition, on action, Allie was in his own world, creative, thoughtful, separate. That's who Holden lost. Not a heroic catcher, but a quiet fielder. And that's the glove he carries. A constant reminder that the person he's trying to become is the opposite of the person he's trying to remember. That contradiction? That's where the entire novel begins. So we know Allie was a fielder, not a catcher. But why does that matter so much to Holden? To answer that, we need to look at what makes this glove unforgettable. Listen to how Holden describes it. Allie had poems written all over his glove in green ink, so he'd have something to read when he was in the field and nobody was up at bat. Stop right there. When nobody was up at bat, think about what that means. While the game is happening, While everyone else is focused on action and competition, Allie is standing alone in the outfield with nothing to do. And instead of being bored, instead of being frustrated, he reads poetry. Poetry he wrote himself. This is extraordinary. Allie transformed isolation into creativity. He took the loneliest position on the field and made it his own private world. The fielder's position, standing far from everyone, waiting, watching, wasn't a weakness for Allie. It was an opportunity to think, to create, to exist in his own imagination. And the color? Green ink. Not black, not blue-green. The color of life, of growth, of things that are alive and growing. Allie was writing life onto a piece of sports equipment. He was making art out of a game. Now here's what breaks your heart. This is the only physical object Holden has that contains Allie's actual words. Not a letter, not a diary, a baseball glove. Allie's voice, his thoughts, his inner world, all preserved in green ink on leather. And where does a fielder stand? In the outfield, alone, separate from the crowd. Allie's position on the field perfectly mirrors who he was as a person, sensitive, artistic, living in his own thoughtful world while everyone else played the game. But Holden doesn't just treasure the glove, he treasures what it represents. Allie's ability to be alone without being lonely, to be on the periphery without feeling left out, to turn waiting into creativity. That's what Holden has lost, not just his brother, but the ability to be at peace with solitude. Remember, Holden writes about this glove for a school assignment. When his roommate Stradlater asks him to write something descriptive, Holden doesn't write about a room or a person or a place. He writes about Allie's fielder's mitt because it's the most real thing in his world. And here's the cruel irony. Stradlater doesn't get it. He gets angry. He tells Holden he wrote about the wrong thing, that a baseball glove isn't what he meant by descriptive. He completely misses the point. But we don't miss it. We understand that this fielder's mitt, covered in green ink poetry, is everything. It's Allie's soul made visible. It's proof that the most beautiful things happen in the margins, in the quiet spaces, in the outfield where nobody's watching. And it's proof that Holden is carrying the wrong dream. So Holden carries a fielder's mitt, a symbol of solitude, observation, peaceful acceptance. But that's not who he wants to be. That's not the fantasy that consumes him. The most famous passage in the entire novel happens when his little sister Phoebe asks him what he wants to do with his life. And Holden gives her this answer, this vision that has defined the book for generations. He imagines thousands of little kids playing in a field of rye, and he's the only adult there. His job? To catch them before they run off the edge of a cliff, to save them from falling, to be the catcher in the rye. It's a beautiful image, heroic, noble, the protector of innocence, the savior standing at the edge, arms outstretched, ready to catch everyone who needs saving. But here's the problem. That's a catcher's job. Active, central, in control, preventing disaster before it happens. And everything about that fantasy is the opposite of what Allie's glove represents. Allie wasn't trying to save anyone. He wasn't controlling outcomes. He was standing in the outfield, reading poetry, existing peacefully in his own world. But Holden can't accept that. He can't accept being a witness. He wants to be a hero. And this is where the tragedy lives. Because Holden's catcher fantasy isn't really about saving children. It's about saving Allie. It's about rewriting the past. Think about it. Allie died of leukemia. There was no cliff, no warning, no moment where Holden could have reached out and caught him. Allie's death was slow, inevitable, completely beyond anyone's control. Holden couldn't save him. Nobody could save him. But in Holden's fantasy, there's always a moment of rescue. There's always a cliff, always a chance to reach out, always the possibility that if you're fast enough, strong enough, watchful enough, you can catch them. You can prevent the fall. This is what grief does. It turns loss into fantasy. It makes us imagine scenarios where we could have changed things, where we could have been the hero, where our vigilance could have made the difference. But here's what destroys Holden. He's carrying Allie's fielder's mitt. Every time he looks at it, he's reminded that Allie wasn't someone who needed catching. Allie was content in the outfield. Allie found peace in solitude. Allie didn't want to be saved from anything. He wanted to read poetry and exist in his own creative world. The glove is telling Holden one truth. His fantasy is telling him another, and he can't reconcile them. There's another layer here that makes this even more devastating. Holden's entire fantasy is based on a misunderstanding. He thinks the song goes, "If a body catch a body coming through the rye." But Phoebe corrects him, the actual lyric is, "If a body meet a body coming through the rye." Not catch, meet. The original Robert Burns poem isn't about rescuing anyone. It's about two people encountering each other secretly, romantically, in a field. It's about connection, not salvation. But Holden has rewritten it in his mind to be about catching, about saving, about preventing falls that were never part of the original song. Even the title of the book is based on Holden's misunderstanding. He's built his entire identity around a fantasy that doesn't exist. He wants to be a catcher in a world that needs fielders. He wants to save people who don't need saving. He wants to control outcomes that can't be controlled. And all the while, he's carrying a fielder's mitt, a quiet reminder that the person he loved most never asked to be caught. Allie just wanted to stand in the outfield and read poetry in green ink. That's the impossible dream. That's the contradiction eating Holden alive. Now here's where Salinger's genius becomes undeniable. Because he doesn't just write Allie had a baseball glove. He could have. That would have been enough for most writers. But Salinger gives us specifics. A left-handed fielder's mitt, covered in poems written in green ink. Why does this matter? Because this is exactly how grief works. When someone you love dies, you don't remember them in general terms. You don't think, my brother played baseball. You think, my brother was left-handed. My brother used green ink. My brother wrote poems in the specific spaces between the leather fingers. Every detail becomes sacred because details are proof that the person was real. Holden obsesses over these details throughout the entire novel. He remembers exactly what Allie looked like, how his voice sounded, the specific things he said. He can't let go of precision because precision keeps Allie alive in his mind. And this is why it has to be a fielder's mitt, not a catcher's mitt. Getting that detail wrong, generalizing it, simplifying it, would feel like losing Allie all over again. It would be a betrayal. Holden isn't carrying a baseball glove. He's carrying the glove exactly as it was, exactly as Allie made it. This is how memory works after loss. We cling to the specific because the specific is all we have left. But there's something else happening here, something deeper. Holden doesn't just remember these details, he tells them over and over, to Stradlater, to the reader, to anyone who will listen. He writes an entire composition about this glove when he's supposed to be doing homework. Why? Because grieving people need to keep saying the name. They need to keep telling the story. They need witnesses to their loss. Holden can't stop talking about Allie because if he stops talking, if he stops remembering the details, then Allie really is gone. The fielder's mitt isn't just an object, it's evidence. It's proof that Allie existed, that he was creative and different and real. Now, think about Salinger himself. He wrote this novel after World War II. He stormed Utah Beach on D-Day, carrying chapters of this book in his backpack. He witnessed friends die. He saw bodies. He was hospitalized for a nervous breakdown. Salinger knew what it meant to lose people. He knew what it meant to carry specific memories, the exact detail of how someone looked, what they said, who they were. He understood that grief doesn't live in abstractions. Grief lives in the particular. The left-handedness, the green ink, the specific position on a baseball field. When Salinger makes Allie's glove a fielder's mitt, he's not making a literary choice. He's showing us how trauma actually works. And here's the final crushing truth. Holden can't let go of the mitt because letting go of the details feels like letting go of Allie. But he also can't fully accept what the mitt represents, that Allie was a fielder, not a catcher. That Allie was content, being peripheral, being alone, being an observer. Because if Holden accepts that, then he has to accept that Allie didn't need saving, that there was no cliff, no moment of rescue, no way Holden could have prevented what happened. He has to accept that some things are beyond our control. The fielder's mitt is the truth Holden can't face. It's proof that his catcher fantasy is exactly that, a fantasy. And as long as he carries that glove, he carries the contradiction that's destroying him. But Allie isn't the only fielder Holden couldn't save. There's another boy, another death, another moment that haunts him. And this is where the symbolism becomes almost unbearably precise. His name was James Castle, a skinny, weak-looking kid at one of Holden's old schools. Some boys tried to make him take back something he said, that a guy named Stabile was conceited. James refused. So they locked him in a room and, in Holden's words, did something to him that was too repulsive to describe. And rather than take it back, rather than give them what they wanted, James Castle jumped out the window. Now here's the detail most readers miss. When James Castle jumped, he was wearing Holden's sweater, a turtleneck that Holden had lent him. So when James died, he died wearing Holden's clothing. Think about what that means. Holden literally gave James something of his own, and it didn't save him. James still jumped. James still died. And Holden had to live with the knowledge that his gesture, his attempt to help, to connect, meant nothing in the face of what was happening to that boy. Just like with Allie, Holden's love, Holden's care, Holden's desire to protect, none of it could prevent death. And here's where it gets even darker. The only adult who responded to James Castle's death was Mr. Antolini. He was the one who picked up James's broken body and carried it to the infirmary. And Holden remembers this. He remembers that Mr. Antolini was the one person who didn't look away, who didn't pretend it didn't happen, who actually did something. That's why, later in the novel, when Holden has nowhere to go, he calls Mr. Antolini, because in Holden's mind, Mr. Antolini is the catcher. He's the one who caught James. Castle literally picked him up after the fall. But of course, Mr. Antolini didn't catch James before he jumped. He only picked up the body after. That's not prevention, that's aftermath. Now think about the pattern. Allie and James Castle, both boys Holden couldn't save. Both described as weak, vulnerable, on the outside. Both, in their own way, fielders, people on the periphery, isolated, unable to be reached in time. Holden's entire life is defined by these two deaths, two boys he couldn't catch, two moments where being a catcher wouldn't have mattered because the fall had already happened, or was happening in a way no one could see or stop. And what does Holden carry? A fielder's mitt, not a catcher's mitt. Because the universe keeps showing him that he's not meant to be the hero in the center, catching people before they fall. He's meant to be the witness in the outfield, holding the memory, carrying the glove, standing apart from the action he cannot control. That's the pattern he can't escape. That's the truth the fielder's mitt keeps whispering. So Holden has spent the entire novel trying to be a catcher, carrying a fielder's mitt. He's tried to save his sister Phoebe, tried to protect children from profanity written on walls, tried to prevent everyone around him from losing their innocence. He's exhausted himself with this impossible mission. And then comes the carousel scene. The moment everything shifts. Phoebe is riding the carousel in Central Park, reaching for the gold ring as she goes around and around. And Holden, standing in the rain, watching her, has this realization. He says, "The thing with kids is, if they want to grab for the gold ring, you have to let them do it. If they fall off, they fall off." Read that again. If they fall off, they fall off. This is Holden finally accepting the fielder's position. He's no longer trying to prevent the fall. He's no longer standing at the edge of the cliff with his arms out, ready to catch everyone. He's standing back, watching, witnessing, letting people take their own risks. make their own choices, live their own lives. He's become what Allie always was, a fielder, someone who observes from a distance, someone who accepts that they cannot control outcomes, someone who finds meaning not in preventing disaster, but in bearing witness to life as it actually happens. And in this moment, standing in the rain, watching Phoebe, Holden says something extraordinary. He says he felt so happy he almost cried. After hundreds of pages of cynicism, anger, and despair, Holden finally feels joy, not from saving someone, not from preventing a fall, but from watching someone he loves exist fully, take risks, reach for something they want. That's the fielder's acceptance. That's the peace Allie had standing in the outfield with his poetry. The peace of knowing you're not responsible for controlling everything. You're only responsible for witnessing, for caring, for holding the memory. The fielder's mitt was teaching him all along. It was showing him that the person he loved most, the person whose memory he carries, wasn't a hero trying to save everyone. Allie was a quiet observer, a poet, someone who found beauty in solitude. And maybe, just maybe, that's what Holden needs to become. Not the catcher in the rye, catching kids before they fall, but the fielder in the outfield, watching with love, accepting what he cannot change, finding peace in the spaces between action. The glove was never the wrong symbol. It was always the right one. Holden just needed the entire novel to understand why. So now we come to the real question. Was this a mistake? Did Salinger accidentally write fielder's mitt when he meant catcher's mitt? Absolutely not. And here's how we know. Jerome David Salinger grew up playing sports. He understood baseball. He knew the difference between positions, between equipment, between what each role meant. This wasn't ignorance, and more importantly, Salinger was obsessive about his writing. He spent 10 years working on this novel. He revised endlessly. Every word was deliberate. Think about how easy it would have been to write catcher's mitt. The novel is called The Catcher in the Rye. The main metaphor is about being a catcher. Making Allie's glove a catcher's mitt would have been neat, symmetrical, thematically perfect in an obvious way. But Salinger didn't do that. He made it a fielder's mitt. He created tension. He created a gap between what Holden wants to be and what he actually has, between fantasy and reality, between the hero he imagines and the witness he's meant to become. That gap is the entire novel. That's where the meaning lives. This is what separates good writing from great writing. A good writer would have made everything match. The catcher wants to catch, so he carries a catcher's mitt. Simple, clean, forgettable. But Salinger understood something deeper about human psychology. We don't carry symbols that match who we want to be. We carry symbols that remind us of who we've lost. We carry contradictions. We carry the gap between our dreams and our reality. Holden doesn't need a catcher's mitt to remind him of his fantasy. He's already obsessed with that fantasy. What he needs is a fielder's mitt to show him the truth, to show him that the person he's trying to honor, the brother he's trying to remember, wasn't asking to be saved. Allie was asking to be seen, to be remembered, to be loved, exactly as he was, a fielder with poetry on his glove. So let's come back to where we started. Why is it a fielder's mitt and not a catcher's mitt? Because Salinger understood that the most profound symbols aren't the ones that confirm our fantasies. They're the ones that challenge them. The fielder's mitt doesn't tell Holden he can save everyone. It tells him he can't. It doesn't validate his hero complex. It shows him a different way to exist in the world. Allie's glove is a roadmap written in green ink. It's showing Holden that meaning doesn't come from preventing every fall. It comes from standing witness, from remembering, from loving people exactly as they were, not as we wish they could have been. This one detail, fielder versus catcher, contains the entire journey of the novel. It's the gap between who we want to be and who we actually are, between control and acceptance, between the fantasy of saving everyone and the reality of witnessing loss. And here's what makes it universal. We all carry our own fielder's mitts. We all hold on to symbols of people we've lost, details we can't let go of, contradictions we can't resolve. We all want to be catchers, heroic, central, in control. But life keeps teaching us to be fielders, observers, witnesses, people who stand in the outfield and find meaning in what we cannot change. That's why this novel has survived 70 years. Because Salinger got the details right. So the next time someone tells you The Catcher in the Rye is just about a whiny teenager who complains too much, tell them to look at the glove. Tell them to notice that it's not a catcher's mitt. Tell them that the entire novel lives in that gap between what Holden carries and what he dreams of becoming. Because that's where literature becomes truth. In the details. In the contradictions. In the fielder's mitt covered in green ink that nobody notices, but everyone should. Salinger didn't make a mistake. He made a masterpiece. If this changed how you see The Catcher in the Rye, let me know in the comments. What other details in literature seem like mistakes but are actually brilliant? I'm always looking for the next deep dive. Thanks for watching, and remember, the truth is always in the details.